Hello, everyone, and welcome back. We're going to talk about a being who is, I was going to say, very misunderstood. I've just said to Felix, he's very good at PR. He's incredibly good at PR, and he's had all of us absolutely bamboozled. And he is not a nice individual at any level. And that is someone called Thoth or Toth, or I even heard it pronounced Tot. So take your pronunciation. I'm going to use Thoth. So just say
And also Jehote as well is
yeah,
another
that's
word.
right. That's
Yeah.
another yeah. Um, and your first trip across him really as a an Egyptian god, and he is an Egyptian god who was supposed to have brought all of the sort of civilizing aspects to mankind, writing and laws and this and that and the other. So he's this very great, very wise being who humanity really wouldn't be where we are today without him, sort of thing. Um, and then he sort of morphs into an individual called Hermes Trismegistus, who is responsible for the whole rolling out of what are called the Hermetic teachings, which is a whole body of teachings around really how to be a better being and how to ascend and all of this, and ancient wisdom teachings. But they are very distorted. And you may also hear of Thoth from the point of view of the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, which are again writings attributed to him, but which are distorted writings taken from, at one point he stole what were called the CDT plates, and maybe at some point we'll do an outline on what the CDT plates are. Uh,
Mm.
but there were sacred teachings, and he took them and distorted them. The reality is, Thoth is an Anunnaki. He is not a god. He is not an angelic human being. He is an Anunnaki, and he is an Anunnaki who undertook many thousands of years ago something called bioregenesis. He agreed to, in order to rehabilitate his DNA and bring it back. The Anunnaki only have 11 strands of DNA working. They chose to disconnect themselves from the Christ consciousness, and therefore they are a fallen race. Um,
Mhm.
Thoth at one point chose to engage with bioregenesis, and he got 11.5 strands of his DNA fully activated again, and he had been working for a couple of 100,000 years with guardian races, and they trusted him deeply. They
Mm.
trusted him deeply, and he was given all sorts of positions of authority. Um, and he was part of the team that came to Earth to help Earth develop and get back to the Christos teachings. Instead, he betrayed and betrayed very badly at the time of the last stellar activation cycle, or just after it, when the Ioni, the high consciousness of the Ioni incarnated onto this planet in order to build out a much needed grid to ensure that Earth would be able to ascend at the next stellar activation cycle, which is this one we're in. He betrayed them, and betrayed them very badly. Do you want to pick up the story there, or do you want me to continue?
You can continue on the story. I'll kind of go into a couple of bits afterwards.
Okay. Um, well, with a load of, he had been plotting in the background for quite some years with a load of his Anunnaki rebels. And at a particular point, they moved in on the Anunnaki compound. They cut communication ties at various levels with other galactic species, and moved in on the Ioni compound and basically massacred most of the males or captured them, and gave the females the choice of being massacred or becoming breeders. Because I think, we've talked in the past about the importance of DNA and DNA codes and things like that to them. So these high frequency templates that the Ioni held were very valuable. from their point of view. So the women were given the choice of basically being turned into breeding sows, and or killed, and all of the irony. I mean, the horror of it. Those of us that remember it and still feel a bit the horror of it. Just you know, it's a story that's played out again and again on Earth. But I don't think you can really comprehend the full horror of that betrayal, and particularly of these amazing consciousness beings and the way they were used and abused. And abused is, I mean, dreadful things were done to the women, dreadful things. And the men as well. Some of the captured men were literally used as human torches and things like that. They were, because they had very high frequency templates, they could hold a lot of current, and you know, they were just experimented on and turned into human torches to see how much they could. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very nasty. But I mean, the shockwaves of that didn't just go around the planet; they went around the galaxy as well.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, Thoth, that this was the point the fallen races really started to move into power here, really started to take over, and the whole program of the massacring of the Margie Grail lines, the capturing of stargates, everything like that started to unfold from that point, really.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So I think it's important to kind of touch base on here about the deception side of things, because I know I've definitely been duped by him in my earlier years.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
remember,
yeah. I mean,
yeah, I
he
remember
was
when,
my hero at one point.
yeah, when I was probably about 4 or 5 years ago, he came to me when I was in bed. Um, and I had been researching the emerald tablets. And he came to me and said something like, "Oh, I see you've been reading my tablets. I'd like you to rewrite them," and blah blah blah. It was all very grandiose and this, that, and the other. Um, and I was thinking, "Oh my God, wow, this is amazing! I'm having this kind of interaction," and the feeling felt so tangible and strong. And I think because I was so young as well, well, I say young, I was like, it was like 4 or 5 years ago. Um, I was very susceptible to it, and I couldn't really read or discern or even understand. And I think this is the kind of the place where a lot of people have been. Sorry, my alarm's going off. 1 second.
That's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I'll just jump in for a moment there.
Yeah,
Well, oh, you're back.
I'm back. Yeah. So,
Excellent. Carry on.
yeah, sorry, alarm break there. Yeah, so I think for a lot of the people that are on maybe like the New Age circuit or the mind body spirit events and things like that, that the magic that is held within the connection to him is very very real,
Yeah.
and that is what draws people in, and this kind of mysticism kind of air to him. And I'd also say Toth isn't just one person as well. He's actually a collective of people,
Yeah.
or a collective of beings that kind of sit as a kind of gestalt of consciousness, but with one representation as the kind of archetypal image. And this goes the same with quite a lot of different archetypes
Mm.
that we see. It's never just kind of like one person. We can look at it in multiple different ways, but it is a gestalt
Mm.
of consciousness that is a master of mind control and manipulation. Um, but that being said, though, I guess I'm going to kind of liken this to the kind of the Freemasons, because they give you bits of wisdom, bits of kind of magic, and then gradually, which can start off feeling very pure, and then gradually starts to kind of phase up and up and up into something much more contorted and much more distorted. And next thing you know, you've got the Freemasons telling you that the light bearer is the true God is Lucifer.
Mm.
And I can't. This is just what I've heard from some ex Freemason clients that I've worked with. Um, this is usually the pathway that it goes. Then the more you kind
Mm.
of do the rituals, the more your consciousness splits apart following their magic. And when your consciousness splits apart, you act as a host for whatever they want to put in you. And then over the time, your kind of free will and sovereignty is kind of gone. And this is why it's important to kind of become aware of it and understanding the kind of manipulative tactics that they kind of follow. Just to be able to override it really, and to kind of see it for a different way. By all means, there is wisdom in there, but that wisdom is wrapped up in a ball, thrown over a hedge, dragged through some mud, taken out, rewritten, recoded, and then given to you, wrapped up with a bow on it. So it looks great, but it's all mangled on the inside, so it doesn't actually kind of
Yeah.
hold consistency or truth or
Yeah.
truth. But there is that fragment of truth within there, which then draws you in.
Yeah, and it is that fragment of truth that does draw you in, because
Mm.
you can feel the resonance within it, and it's kind of like, oh, there's something here for me. But
Mm-hmm.
actually, the deeper you dig into it, you just think, oh, if I just knew a bit more, if I just knew a bit more, and that's how it sucks you in.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, the deeper you get into it, the more mired you become, and the more
Yeah.
muddled and confused, and
Mm-hmm.
and things become less and less clear rather than more and more clear.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, it's typical Anunnaki. I mean, Thoth is he's a very good version of an Anunnaki. He is a master at Anunnaki tactics, and Anunnaki tactics of trickery and
Mm-hmm.
deception.
Mm-hmm.
And as Felix said, that everything they do is truth wrapped in lies.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, basically, we're suckered. And we are a very, the angelic human race is a very trusting race, and it's a lovely, lovely quality we have in that. But it means that beings like this can take massive advantage of us, and they have. And yeah, I mean, a lot of people, um, Thoth has come through as their mentor, like he tried to do with Felix here.
Mm-hmm.
And they're people with good intent who have been misled. And yeah, I've been asked quite a bit about Thoth recently, so hence the fact we're doing this. It's not to disillusion anybody, it's not to sort of denigrate anybody or anything like this, but it is buyer beware. Please be aware that everything is not what it seems.
What kind of questions have you been asked? Are you at liberty to discuss them or?
Well, it's just a question about people. Very interestingly, the fact that people are even asking the question, I think, is showing that there's some unease coming in. It's like, well, is he a good guy, or all this stuff to do with Thoth, should I be paying attention to it, like the Emerald tablets and the Hermetic teachings and things like that? It's are these things I should be studying?
Mhm.
Um,
Okay.
it's that, so people's awareness has been brought to it, but the fact they're asking me, is he a good guy, or words to that effect, or are these pure teachings or whatever,
Mhm.
shows that I think a lot of us, our kind of bullshit radar is stepping up a few
I
notches.
love that. I've just been guided to ask you about how does this correspond to the world stage as well?
Oh, I mean, you're seeing Anunnaki tactics play out around us the whole time. And it's interesting to note that, I mean, the entity Thoth, and I call him an entity, a consciousness, as Felix says, a gestalt really of consciousness, has actually merged his own consciousness in his lust for power, and to be seen as a god. He has merged himself with AI, because that gives him immortality, and he's merged himself into a tri-consciousness gestalt, which is a very nasty being called Azazel, uh, something called the Pindar, which is horrific, and then you've got Thoth in there, and you've got this tri-consciousness AI merge that is, again, it's rulership of the world, domination, control, power. Um, so it's the puppet masters behind the scenes, really. But again, it's the trickery and deception that we see playing out. It's the fact that so much, I mean, so much of our awakening now has been they've told us this, but the reality is this.
Mm.
And this is where you're seeing the deception come in. They're doing it still. You listen to some of the politicians, they're telling you outright lies. The reality on the ground, the boots on the ground reality is nothing like the stories they keep telling us, and yet we're supposed to believe it. And it's like, if I can say it loud enough and long enough, I will just pummel you into doing as you're told, effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And it's those kind of tactics that are coming at us. So we do have to be aware of the trickery. I mean, I think we've seen some of it being played out in the White House recently. There's been some great sleight of hand being going on about seemingly one story unfolding, and then all of a sudden you realize it's something else. Now, is that strategy or is that trickery? You've got to decide that for yourself. You've got to feel into it for yourself and
Mm-hmm.
say, well, this is guardian races being very clever in the way they deal with fallen races, or actually this is fallen races trying to deceive us.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to hone your own um, abilities to tune in and to really begin to decide
Mm-hmm.
what's
I
going on here.
Yeah, a perfect explanation there. And I just want to kind of add on that tactic of giving them something, giving the people something, but really it's the other thing. This is what when we remote view a situation, it will be called like an inversion template.
Yeah,
So the inversion templates would be where you are kind of presented with a piece of information, but in actual fact, the whole intention of it is you've been given this kind of cookie, this delicious cookie, and it looks great, but through the inversion, the cookie is actually made up of like worms and spiders and bugs and all kinds of nasty shit.
yeah,
That is then kind of given to you to eat, whether you like it or not. After you
yeah,
find out what it is, it's already there and it's already on the plate, and there's nothing you can do about it.
yeah.
So this is why it's an interesting thing to look at here. Another one would be emotional manipulation, which we see on
Mm,
both sides,
mm,
um, where they choose very, very, very emotionally driven topics or subjects, and then force you into a state of war with one another.
mm.
Um, this is typical Anunnaki. It's definitely not
Yeah, it's
Draco,
kind of
that is.
divide and
Yeah, it's
conquer.
definitely not Draco because the Draco is a lot more ruthless,
Yeah, and
and a lot
they're
more
very brutal.
aggressive.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
where you see very brutal regimes, that's Draco.
yeah,
See a
yeah.
lot of trickery. Think of the EU.
Mm,
That sort of centrist, unelected cabal that runs the EU, and the way they just promulgate stories that are not based in truth the whole time.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
you're meant to go along with it, and if you don't, then you're gaslit and you're
Cancelled.
called all kinds of names
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
exactly.
silenced. Yeah.
So
Mm.
on the next one, we're going to do something a lot more fun, a
Yeah,
lot
a
lighter
little
and like
lighter than that.
nicer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I hope it's helping. If it helps, please give us a thumbs up, give us a like or subscribe or whatever. And just so we know what's touching you and reaching to you and helping you. Um, it's all there to grow really. All right then. Loads of love, everyone. Take care.